Get my buckles on. Well, I want to thank Mongo Santa Maria for the percussion interlude that we had prior to the program. Good morning. Welcome to Community Voice. I'm your host, Keith Parris. Good morning, Devo.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jermaine. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, sir.
How's everybody this day?
Great, man.
Man.
Blessed by the best, too blessed to be stressed because God don't make no mess.
Today is the third day of Black History Month. Is McDonald's running their ads?
No,
they killed their diversity. I think that was a part of it.
No. There
Calvin
is no
ain't
more
got a job.
365 Black. There is no more. No.
There ain't no more.
And pay attention how many Black History Month observances we gonna miss this year. How many people gonna back up off of it?
That's all right. When I was in school, we didn't do it anyway.
Say it again. When you was in school, what?
When I was in school, we didn't do it anyway.
Please don't.
Y'all did. Are you talking about that
Black History
at your high school?
Yeah,
at your white high school?
In my white high school, but it wasn't until I got to my blacker than black junior high school that we even talked about it. I don't know if they were doing it at the other middle schools. Parkman just was unique because it was so black. How could we not do Black History Month? So
I mean, even in my elementary, we celebrated Black History Month.
Yeah, because you came after me.
No, but I mean our avenue, and then from our avenue to going to Parkman.
You're 9 years after me.
I'm probably about 15 years after you.
Okay, man. So
it's really 3, man. Quit playing with me.
Really, man.
That's
what we doing.
This 23-year-old I'm talking to over here. No, I mean it really wasn't, because you got to remember I was at that bridge. Right, I got to Parkman, I think, in 68, 69.
Yeah, you were right there.
Damn, how old is you?
So,
how old are you?
You
was a part of the. That was a.
That's what I did. That's what I did about Samuel L. Jackson. When I saw Samuel L. Jackson in that picture of Martin Luther King playing pool, I was like, damn, how old is Samuel L. Jackson? I ain't noticed it was 75.
Yeah, he looked good.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
but Keith,
look too good.
Keith might have been the first. Were you a part of 220?
No.
I think I was.
220
one of the
happened
first.
in the late 70s.
Yeah, that would have been me. And man,
Dude,
you as well,
good,
right?
man.
What, the 220?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I was part of the whole 220.
Yeah, it wasn't you. And then you began to see yesterday in church for our Black History. What would I call it? Our recognition.
Did y'all call it Black History Month?
Not Negro. No, colored people. We did Mildred Harpo yesterday.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
One of the things that Mildred did back in the 60s, I think this would have been like 66, 67, they had freedom schools. Marion Wright then, who they did it where they pulled the kids out of school. Most of them was at churches. Now I just happened to be at 5th Street School, and Mount Moriah was next door. And so we could hear the kids at Freedom School in Mount Moriah. My mother, who education was, and we ain't taking off, that I think maybe in retrospect, she might look at it differently now.
Yeah.
But so we were there, but they were having a great
what happened?
time.
You said your mama wouldn't take off for Black History Month.
She wouldn't let us go to Freedom School.
Miss Cliffy?
Yeah, I know.
Miss Blackity Black, Miss Cliffy?
I'm going to tell you why, because
what?
As black as we was, learning was more important. So
black.
my mother felt like you need to be in
black,
school.
Black.
Right. That was the whole thing.
What?
Yeah. And to hear those kids, they was having a great time over there too. And we come out for recess and you could hear them.
Ain't
So
more important than being black.
But shout out.
Jesus Christ. I'm just you got me. I mean, it was the time. I get it. But hell no, not in our house. Ain't nothing more important than being black.
No. What I'm saying,
my mother would have kept you out for Black Shoe Shine Day. They'd be like, "Oh, it's a black. It's black.
Black is involved.
Stay home. Like, see, they from Birmingham, so they ain't want to hear.
That was a serious movement.
Yeah, they ain't want to hear.
Birmingham.
Yep, Birmingham.
I think Rhonda said something in church yesterday.
The fourth lady with no mean coat.
Come on, man, don't be...
Oh man, my guy called me the other day. He got a couple minks for sale. You gonna get one for Rhonda?
So anyway,
how much, man? Hey man, I'm gonna pull off the Saab, man. I still got the Saab. Let him know I'm interested.
The fourth lady would know me, Coach. What she say?
All right, man. Good. All right. Give me his card. Let me know what quarter
Probably
goes.
right. Probably had a report on that church yesterday. What she say?
Meet him at the gas station on Sherman and Capitol.
No, 27 Burleigh. 27 Burleigh.
Let me know what quarter you're on, and I'll go get his coat.
Burleigh, and he said, cash. You hear me?
But Rhonda said something yesterday, and I think it was profound. I'm paraphrasing what she said. She said, just because they're trying to erase our history, don't mean that we shouldn't know our history.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we are today. I did bring in, I'm going to read an excerpt from the father of Black History Month, Carter G. Woodson. Well, it started with him with Negro History Week.
TH on the end.
Month.
Dude, you and your month.
In the month. Got the H. But anyway, I think that it is, wow, we just got into 2025.
It seemed like we've been in it forever.
Yeah, but, you all were talking about the national anthem, and they were born in Canada. Marco Rubio made his first diplomatic trip to Panama. And in Panama, he was greeted with Panamanian flags everywhere. And it's really a fascinating country. I think if you ever want to visit, it's just really an eclectic country in terms of the different ethnicities there and how they blend themselves. But I can see that part of this approach, like with USAID, for example, they're complaining about, they being the U.S. government is complaining about the footprint that China has all over the world. China goes in behind where the U.S. once did aid, who saw there was no strategic interest. You got to, and it's interesting, they bombed Somalia, but part of the aid, right, was tied up in that USAID.
Right.
So, and then should we be surprised that he would cut off aid that would primarily benefit peoples like the Democratic Republic of the Congo?
The Congo.
And things like that, because didn't he call them S-hole countries? Yeah. And so the condescension, so the white supremacy is ripe. If people said they voted for Donald Trump because of his economic policies, come on, man. And you got to look at
I want to hear what they have to say as these tariffs begin to unfold. I want to hear them saying, the hue and cry, the challenging, the screaming. Oh, this is horrible. I bet you we don't hear a word.
And I was actually watching CNN and all of these other news outlets this weekend, and I thought, where are the Meaches of the world? Where is that cat that came and sat here and said, we don't need DEI, it's not beneficial for us? What are you saying now? Like, I would love to really hear
the Kool-Aid, bro. I mean,
even though we see what's happening, we see the effects that's about to take place, and we see the pushback from other countries. I just want to hear the response.
Like, I was talking to one of my friends, and he was talking about this, and he said it's safe just to stay in one lane, narrowly focused economy, business. I'm not looking at everything else that's happening around me. Yep, Black history in trouble, HBCUs in trouble, people being fired and let go. All of that's happening around our head. I'm staying focused on one lane, and that's the economy, and that's how they protecting themselves from having to be realistic about the fallout all around them and the choices that they encouraged and made.
And part of it is to get a bill that, because the current tax cuts, corporate will sunset on September 30th. So watch the tax policy. And it's interesting because I will have an opportunity to have a conversation with Congresswoman Moore about this, because she's on Ways and Means. Mm-hmm. And so the whole tax policy, and they're looking for ways to cut government services because of the decrease in intake of taxes. Corporations, when they pay taxes, pay a lot of taxes when they pay, right? And so those tax cuts, if that law stays in place, it's going to be real interesting. Yeah. Yep. Let me do this real quick. And I'm going to do this every day. Let me say something about our history. Reading is fundamental. May I suggest that for all the listeners that you have at least one book that you read this month. You should read every month, but if you have one book that you read, so I'll be reading excerpts from. I was just looking. I thought I couldn't find this book. I know I had this book.
There's breaking news. He'll be right back with you, ladies and gentlemen. He's
They're doing.
He's been handed a
normally
note.
they do this in May.
Breaking news.
Right. Hot off the press.
Keith Parris, Cub reporter. WNOB. Where's my press pass? They're doing a day without Latinos going on right now on the South Side.
Yeah, you
Why
actually
they
got a
doing it
phone
today?
call. So you got a phone call about that right now.
What today?
Why wait? I guess the urgency of the moment.
Yeah.
Oh snap!
Real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. I got to do these two things because I'll forget it and we'll get away. Call, I'm gonna get you. Hold on, let me do it real quick.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Beyonce
Oh my.
and her winning
Yeah.
country
Yeah.
album of the year.
Oh, they pissed too.
Oh, the CMA, Country Music Association, wouldn't even recognize the album. The Grammys did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you should see some of the comments that was floating online when she won. I mean, this hatred stuff is real.
I mean, but they was hating on her from the beginning when she even first made it. Like she didn't even, in their mind, she didn't even have a right to sing it.
Who was the guy though? The other was it
with
Country
the
Road?
locks. So what's the guy?
Oh,
with the locks? What's that? Nicole.
It's
The
on the tip of my
Wong-
tongue.
Little something.
Oh,
Yeah. So anyway, that was surprising, and then it was the first award given last night.
I mean, but number one, too, just the fact that she had not gotten album of the year.
Now that I did not know with all the Grammys.
Like, and understand this: no black woman has won album of the year
Right.
since Lauryn Hill won 25 years ago.
Miss Education of Lauryn Hill.
25
And Beyonce
years.
been putting out bangers.
And so did you see what Core DJ Vale put out?
No, I
He
didn't-
did a thing and it had Jill Scott, Erykah Badu, Aretha Franklin, and Beyonce.
Yeah.
And it was like one of them gotta go. Which one go? The number of people who said take out Beyonce.
Yeah.
Who was it again?
Court DJ.
No. Who
It
the four?
was
um,
Aretha Franklin,
Okay.
Jill Scott,
Okay.
Erykah Badu,
Okay.
and Beyonce.
Man, you what?
Remove one.
Ooh.
And the number of people who removed Beyonce, it was overwhelming.
See,
And like this woman has won more Grammys than any other person.
yeah, that's an easy one right there because
And I'm like,
And how about her getting the award from Taylor Swift? That was
yes.
yeah.
And Taylor Swift didn't win anything.
It went into the biggest.
Taylor Swift didn't win any awards this year. But I just was so taken aback because I'm like, this woman is the winningest
yeah,
entertainer in history.
yeah.
And I'm like, the last show Erykah Badu did, I didn't even know what she was talking. I didn't even know what she was doing.
Yeah.
Like she is in space right now.
No, she's past space.
Like ever since Common dumped her and she walked butt naked down the street, she just been crazy. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In Dallas.
Yeah.
Dealey
Yeah.
Plaza.
Yeah.
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 Like
Let me, and then real quickly.
Kendrick
And-
Lamar too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar. That's right.
Not like
He
us.
racked up.
He did. He did very well. Should be interesting at the Super Bowl.
Also, I want to give a shout out to my cousin, man.
Oh, you said that.
Rail Rideout, man. He got a Grammy, man. He won a Grammy last night
Chris Brown.
for the Chris Brown record, man. So the Rail Rideout, hey, cuz I'm happy for you, man. Mine is coming next, man. So
AD going to Dallas, Doncic going to the Lakers.
yeah, that's crazy.
Dude, that was nobody saw that coming.
But you know what? That's really gonna shake up the whole NBA
I was
because
gonna say it's a whole conversation.
by that happening, and they was telling Luka that he was out of shape, which is going to cause for Zion Williams to be moved next because New Orleans is feeling the same way that he's out of shape and that he can't contribute, and they've been talking about his weight, so they've been talking about moving him too.
It was a crazy weekend.
Yeah, man.
Caller, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning.
I just wanted to comment. on the things, man. Milwaukee has been so separated. It's just, I mean, overwhelming right now to me because I talked to a lot of people and I met Michelle one time, I think, down at the, I can't think now. I'm just so mad that they're Latinos are having a day where they're not reporting to work. And this is going on, and it's crazy because we can't do it. And like you say, our ancestors gave their lives, you know, and right now we're honoring the white image. And that's what, as long as you're showing that white image, oh, you're going to be on top of the world. But we got to go back to being Negroes. That's what we are. That's real talk. And it's they don't want us to recognize ourselves or who we are. They just want us to come to work, show up. Let me tell you how to, you know, I'm 61 years old. There's no way you can tell me how to do a job that I've been doing for over 30 years. But corporation is running everything now. We need to all sit out and show them that, hey, we are the workforce.
So are you the one that made us aware that they were doing a day without Latinos today?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you hear that at? I haven't seen that anywhere.
I called. I just bought a car. I'm getting the car, my wheels put on. And it's just the way that they're treating us right now. So they're calling all their people that had repairs coming into the shop and no one showing up to work. And some of the businesses were surprised as well.
I was surprised when I heard.
Can I just ask real quick? Do you think it may be about ICE as opposed to a day without Latinos, or did somebody actually say a day without Latinos? Or is it ICE?
They said a day without Latinos.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're talking about that day it was really, really cold. And they had, this was before the inauguration.
Oh, it's a day without immigrants.
Immigrants, okay.
Aurora business. Thank you, caller. Caller. They said Aurora business owner to close for a day on Monday in solidarity with nationwide a day without immigrants protest.
Yeah, and you remember those Haitians we were talking about in Springfield, Ohio?
Mm-hmm.
They were here under a program established by Biden to allow them to come into the country and work. That has now been terminated by Trump.
Yeah.
So it's those Haitians that came in,
too.
Venezuelans, Hondurans.
Yeah,
I know it's three. I think there's one more. And so now it makes it easier for them to repatriate them because they're not deporting them. They were here legally and they just lost their legal status. So, yeah, I think it's if we're not seeing the handwriting on the wall,
that's right,
then we're definitely deceiving ourselves. Appreciate you, man.
No, appreciate you guys. Keep up the good work and getting the words out. And Michelle,
yes, sir.
You're powerful. You're powerful, and I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You bring tears of joy to hear you talk and check the ones that's trying to check about our sisters. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
They're just as powerful. So
look, Keith over here crying. Thank you, sir.
I'm telling you, I'm ready to cry.
I'm crying because you just say I was powerful. That's why I'm over here crying.
Man, but
my feelings are hurt. I'm all about my little feelings. Let me suggest, if you can, The Miseducation of the Negro.
Best book.
By Carter G. Woodson. And I'm going to, every day, I'm going to be doing things from either literature or other writings. I want to go. There's a chapter in the book called How We Drifted from the Truth. And I want to go to the excerpt where he says that, let's go back. Let me start with the teachings of fine arts. These instructors usually started with Greece by showing how the art was influenced from without, but they omitted the African influence which scientists now regard as significant and dominant in early Hellas, which would be Greece. Let me do this. Got to remember when this book was written. So I'm going to use some terms that we don't use anymore. You might hear Caucasian, you might hear some other things. We don't use those terms anymore. So just got to remember the time when this book was written.
Is no face in there?
No face. They failed to teach the student that the Mediterranean melting pot, with the Negroes from Africa bringing their wares, their ideas, and their blood therein to influence the history of Greece, Carthage, and Rome. Making desired father to the thought, our teachers either ignored these influences or endeavored to belittle them by working out theories to the contrary. The bias did not stop at this point, for it invaded the teachings of the professions. Negro law students were told that they belonged to the most criminal element in the country, and an effort was made to justify the procedure in the seats of injustice, where laws were interpreted as being one thing for a white man and different thing for a Negro. In constitutional law, the spinelessness of the United States Supreme Court in permitting the judicial nullification of the 14th and 15th Amendment was and still is boldly upheld in our few law schools. They're talking about Plessy versus Ferguson. There were some other suits that came out where the Supreme Court, in effect, nullified the 14th and 15th Amendment. In medical schools, Negroes were likewise convinced of their inferiority in being reminded of their roles as germ carriers. The prevalence of syphilis and tuberculosis among Negroes was especially emphasized, without showing that these maladies are more deadly among the Negroes for the reasons that they are Caucasian diseases. And since these plagues are new to Negroes, these sufferers have not had the time to develop against them the immunity which time had permitted in the Caucasian. Other diseases which Negroes easily fell prey were mentioned to the point out of race as an undesirable element when the condition was due to the Negro's economic and social status. Little emphasis was placed upon the immunity of the Negro from diseases like yellow fever and influenza, which are also disastrous to whites. Yet the whites were not considered inferior because of this differential resistance to these plagues. In history, of course, the Negro had no place in this curriculum. He was pictured as a human being of the lower order, unable to subject passion to reason, therefore useful only when made the hewer of wood and the drawer of water for others. No thought was given to the history of Africa except so far as it had been a field of exploitation for the Caucasian. You might study the history as it was offered in your systems from the elementary school throughout the university, and you would never hear Africa mentioned except in the negative. You would never thereby learn that Africans first domesticated the sheep, goat, and cow, developed the idea of trial by jury, produced the first stringed instruments, and gave the world its greatest boon in the discovery of iron. You would never know that prior to the Mohammedan invasion from 1000 AD, that these natives in the heart of Africa had developed powerful kingdoms, which would later organize as the Songhai Empire on the order of that of the Romans, and boasting of similar grandeur. Unlike other people, then the Negro, according to this point of view, was an exception to the natural plan of things and had no such mission as that of an outstanding contribution to culture. The status of the Negro then was justly fixed as that of an inferior. Teachers of Negroes in the first schools after emancipation did not proclaim any such doctrine, but the content of their curricula justified these inferences. That's just an excerpt from the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. He has one thing in here. He said, and I used to hear conscious brothers and sisters say this. It says, very difficult for you to try to manage or to rule when you are the victim of the system. And the very system that taught you that you were inferior gets then in the way. Does it sound familiar where you would go and say a person's a DEI hire and then make the assumption that either it's a woman or a person of color? Today is day 3 of Black History Month. Caller, I see you. I'm going to take a break. We'll be right back.
The passing of a loved one is emotional enough without adding the stress of funeral arrangements. By pre-planning, you receive the desires of your heart while taking away the burden from your family. It also saves you money, providing the dignity and respect your memory deserves. And there are times when life ends unexpectedly. Please know that the New Pitts Mortuary is here to lend a helping, caring hand anytime, day or night. We are the New Pitts Mortuary.
You're inside Community Voice on WNOV 860 AM and 106.5 FM with your host, Keith Parris.
All right, welcome back to Community Voice. Caller, we thank you for your patience. Welcome to the program. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, what's happening?
Well, let me say Boker Tov, which in Hebrew means good morning. Shalom, family.
Morning.
So I got one comment. This Black History Month, can we try to stop supporting this self-brainwashing by using the words white and supremacy? Like subconsciously, unconsciously. It's like it's been ingrained in us. They have made it part of who we are. It's when these types of things are happening, it is really the primary descriptive phrase that we use, and it is brainwashed us into believing that they go together. It is insecurity that they are suffering from. So I'm gonna suggest that we start using the phrase white insecurity as it relates to the white privilege that we know that they have, right? Not that they're not trying to do all these things, but when they can convince us that we have to keep using those words together, white and supremacy, and it just rolls off us, rolls out of our mouth like it's real. And we all know that it's not.
Well, and Craig, I don't think we're saying that white people are superior. I think we're talking about social hierarchy now. I think that.
I understand that. I'm just saying it's the use of those words together that supports what they're trying to do in our own minds. Go ahead. I'd like to hear the rest of your comments.
No, I was just saying that I think it's just more of a sociological or economic or political assessment of status in the country, right? I mean, and again, I'll be reading from her book, Isabel Wilkerson's book on caste, and talking about that, the caste system in this country is such that people of European descent at the top of the caste, and then you work your way back in terms of that. She did an excellent job of pointing out that many, if not most societies, have a level of caste system. It could be based on the language, it could be based on, but in America, it's based on appearance, right? And those people who look a certain way are at a certain point in the hierarchy, right? And then people who look a certain way are in a point in the hierarchy, but usually lower. So it's used to perpetuate a system, the status quo that in effect says that it's a dog whistle when you hear DEI. And I'm glad that they had, because the industry that Trump went after was the aerospace industry. Now, here's one of the things, and I heard a woman say this to me, and now it's just become part of just my thought pattern, where she says that math is truth. So here's the thing. If you are not good at math, based on those types of jobs, you can't do the job. And they talked about with DEI. DEI eliminates the barriers for people to be able to say, look, I have the skills. I came up during the era right after Bakke was decided. The Bakke case was an effect that had a big impact on affirmative action. And what they pointed out was the issue wasn't performance once one got into the institution. It was having the opportunity to get into the institution. Because what happens in the institution, I know this, they don't change the qualifications. They don't change criteria for success in the institution. It doesn't happen, right? You got to compete like everybody else. And so what they're saying is that part of what segregation was a barrier for people for opportunity. Again, it wasn't so much that black people wanted to live with white people. It was that there were better opportunities where white people were situated.
So if we were listening to Trump's inaugural address, one of the main...
I'm sorry, man. Hold on, Craig. I'm sorry, I missed him. Let me shout out the good folks there at the New Pitts Mortuary, Brother Nate Luckett, Deacon Michael Jones. Good morning, gentlemen. Almost got past me, but I saw you. All right, go on, man.
One of the main things he said during his address was to effectuate manifest destiny. Anybody recall hearing him use that phrase during his address? We know what that phrase is all about. If you do any reading, you know that this has been something that was put in place. Part of the reason they came here thinking they could, with the purpose of taking over this land from people who were here, is tied to manifest destiny. What they did in Africa is tied to manifest destiny. What they're doing now, as he said, is tied to manifest destiny. So this thing on, white privilege, to maintain the privilege to control the resources, the lifestyle, the planet, if you will, all tied to manifest destiny. Everything that Musk is, everything that he is associated with manifest destiny. Trump the same way. All of the dog whistles point back to that. All of these associations, skull and bones, all of them things are about their manifest destiny. And so anything that they put out here that is funneling everything in that direction is, to get everybody else, whether it's a place of comfort with what they're doing or, acquiescence to what they're doing. Those who are getting so-called acclimated, or Byron Donald or Tim Scott, thinking they're going to fit in. No, that's not going to happen. This is brainwashing. They think that there's going to be a place for them when these people get into these positions. But we see that, and here you are, what did you say? It's 3 weeks into his term, and already he done flipped everything that he told all of his Hispanic or Latino and Black supporters. Had them convinced that, it's going to be good for y'all. While he was telling them all along, there go my Blacks, there go my Latinos, and we're going to deport them. And it's all based on your color. It don't matter if you're a citizen or not. If you get swept up in that net, we're going to move you along, and it will take whatever it takes to find out if you get repatriated or whatever. Herein lies the attack on the 14th Amendment, birthright citizenship. Do we realize that if they get rid of that, that takes away all of our progress and the rights that Black folks have in this country too, to be quote unquote citizens? Going back to when it was first initiated. So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is what I started with. We have brainwashed ourselves into believing, by using the phrase that they want you to believe, white supremacy. It doesn't exist other than on paper or in the air when you put it out there. And the more it's put out there, the more it becomes real. We know it's insecurity because we know what we've done. Like they say, it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. It doesn't matter what other people think about you if you know who you are, right? So these are the foundational things. And the last thing, I'm going to say this, based on my belief, my understanding now of who I am. Deuteronomy 28 tells us who we are. And that's the thing that they've been keeping us confused about all this time. You go back to the beginning of time, we know that there was Black people doing everything. And the history of that is written in that book and many other books that have been written related to our existence on the planet as it relates to the Creator. So I'm going to just leave it at that. There are many people who will steer you away from understanding who you are. But when these Ashkenazi Jews understand who you are, and they're making moves to keep you from understanding who you are, you go back and look at 2023 when they had a council in Israel. saying that the greatest threat to Israel, quote unquote, today is the black youth in America, understand why they're saying that. It's because they don't want you to know who you are. So, and I'll be out with that. Peace.
All right. Yeah, Manifest Destiny is the idea that the United States was destined to expand westward across North America. It was a belief that was rooted in American exceptionalism and romantic nationalism. That term was coined in 1845 by John L. Sullivan, the editor of a Democratic Party magazine. Now, you got to remember the Democratic Party then was very different than the Democratic Party now. That would have been the party of Andrew Jackson. The idea was based on belief that God intended for the United States to expand its dominion. Manifest Destinies led to the forced removal of Native Americans and other groups from their homes. It also led to the Mexican-American War in 1846. And the rapid expansion of the United States intensified the issue of slavery, which then led to the Civil War. Manifest Destiny was expressed in art and other media, such as wagon trains of settlers and empty lands. It was also used to justify the United States' willingness to go to war to secure new territories. And so, you know, it was divinely inspired. The God told them that they should go take the land. And part of that, how we're part of that, is obviously the expansion of enslavement into territories where primarily Missouri, which was controversy. I think it had a lot to do with Missouri, places like Kansas. Now, there were many white folks who had a problem with enslavement. There were people for religious or moral reasons who had a problem with enslaving any other individual. Yet at the same time, they were still white supremacists. They did believe in the inferiority of the Bantu, that would be us. And then when you just look at the Spanish, so part of this Manifest Destiny is, for example, renaming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Okay. Which is kind of fascinating. It should have always been the Gulf of America. But this is, when they say America, they're not talking about North America. They're really talking about the United States of America. And again, our territorial limits are 7 miles from the shore. After that, everything else is considered international waters. Caller, welcome to the program. Good morning.
Yes, I know Craig may not like white supremacy, but one thing I found is one statement you can agree or disagree is I like the term white male dominance, and that's the term I've been using. And I didn't even tell that to some white guys, because I said, you guys had to dominate everything. You don't even help your own women. So when you say white supremacy, that includes the white woman. But if you say white male dominance, that's really what it's all about. When they're trying to control everything, or they're in Africa or Asia, it's really about our white European, European American dominance. They want to dominate everything.
Yeah, I think that is that's good. That's good. And
I think I like white male dominance, because they're not even helping their women. If you look and see, I mean, they didn't even vote for Hillary. I mean, they definitely don't want any women in the positions unless they're, like I said, barefooted or in the kitchen, pregnant and producing their little ones or something like that.
Yeah, and then just representation, because when you look at it, I think women are 53% of the population. But if you look at Congress, I don't even know if a quarter of the members of Congress are even are women. You know, so it is, you're correct. And then the dominant class are white males.
White male dominant. He's got to dominate. If he can't dominate, and given this country's history, he'll destroy it. Or he'll find some way to get rid of it. He'll find some way to, this based on what I've seen in history. The same thing, he was handling every group, whether it was blacks, Africans, and whether it was dealing with native indigenous people in their country. They had a movie called Soldier Blue. It started here in Colorado, but it was in 1864, this is when they went in there and they took all this land from the Indians. They said, even though the Indians wanted peace, they just went in there and massacred them all. And these massacres they had, and they've had some, if you look, and also when it comes to Black history too, when they're doing history, a lot of times, like I said, you got to make sure they're not doing his story. And that's what I'm getting to, Keith. I mean, because a lot of times they're just doing things to, like I said, white male dominance. He's got to stay on top, and like I said, he'll do anything to stay on top.
All right.
Are you still there?
Yep. All right, man. No, I think that's a good description. I think that's what we're facing. That's what we're looking at. I hear this term and everybody will go like, oh man, in theory, it sounds good. Where, Donald Trump kept saying, we want the best and the brightest. We want the best and the brightest. And if you have people excluded, someone gave a great definition of what DEI is, and it was working, not so much a definition of how it is. And they said that as a college recruiter, I know that this was the case. You identify your potential pool of people that you're going to recruit. Usually for us,
right,
it was students who went to Catholic schools because we're a Catholic college. It was for us regional, where we went from Massachusetts to Virginia, in terms of the Eastern Seaboard, 95. And so that's what you target. He said that if the only place you go, and I think Jasmine Crockett probably said the same thing, said the only place you go is that your pool of candidates are going to be white males, right? Because the schools you teach or you do outreach to are going to be schools that are predominantly white male, right? So she said what DEI says is that no, not only do we hit that we would hit, let me say, Swarthmore College, that we're also then in the state of Pennsylvania going to go to Lincoln University, right?
Yes. I want to say before you I want to tell you something.
So it's been able where women are, where you go to a program where you can get a representation of women. This whole idea of meritocracy is not a meritocracy unless it is a fair and balanced playing field, which means that everyone has the opportunity. It's like I said about affirmative action. Affirmative action just said the barriers that prevented people from being able to get into an institution then is removed, and you have to be more conscious of how those barriers impacted in the past on your potential pool of candidates. Because you're at Wichita State, you're at UWM. Did you see any changing of qualifications and classes? No, you don't.
That's what I want to tell you, Keith.
An engineering class is an engineering class.
Right.
Just like they said for the pilots involved in these plane crashes, the training was the training, and you either could cut it or you didn't. Right. There were no exceptions made based on gender or race or any other, factor. You either could do it or you couldn't.
Yeah, and that was, and one of the reasons why they're having such a tough time, because the number they gave, and I don't know if that was the number, but the number of air traffic controllers, they said a third of them, no more than a third, wash out. They never get through.
Difficult.
Of course it's difficult, because unless you have the mental acuity to go in and be able to do the math and the science, then you're not going to make it.
But also they talk about even the language and the way they talk is very different than the way we talk as regular folks. But I will just say this, as somebody who has done DEI work for more than 25 years, DEI at its core is also about the idea that we try to create environments, workplaces, organizations that are reflective of the people around us, that are reflective of the makeup of this country. And people want to run away from saying that, but that also was and is a part of it, that it is not okay to look around and an organization be all white males. It's not okay to look around in an organization be all Black, all female, all anything. It's not particularly when public dollars are frequently, and that's why the federal government really got, a mandate to kind of do things differently, because I, as a Black taxpayer, have a right to be considered for some of these jobs.
And the
And
government
those doors were being closed
and the-
systemically.
and what was originally the government affirmative action program was started under Richard Nixon.
Yeah, it was started under Republican administration.
Right. And then you have, let's talk about this whole thing at the FAA and the DEI. That program that he was going after, he being Donald Trump, was a program that started
under
Donald Trump.
I mean, and that's the part that's so crazy about this, like the ignorance of this man that you don't even know.
That somebody's going to look it up.
Just like I said with the Department of Education, Betsy DeVos sent most of those people to the DEI training that they are now being made to stay at home, and they have now been, quote, tainted because they went through the training, but it was ordered under your department. That's why I said.
What about the white folks who went through the training?
But that's them. These are the people that's being that are big. Like this one lady, she said, "I'm AI. I'm here for AI and education." But I was required by Betsy DeVos. She sent 400 people to a DEI training. That's the only connection I've ever had to any DEI conversation, initiative, anything in the Department of Education. But I got an email on Friday night or Saturday night at 7 p.m. telling me, don't report back to work. Your email is suspended. You're basically done, but we're going to pay you while we figure this out. And the person said, you do realize this happened under your first administration, that I got exposed to DEI. And I only went through a 2-day training. One lady said she was in a half-day course.
You make it sound like a disease.
That's what they're trying to do. That's exactly what they're trying to do. So that's the frustration.
Hey, Keith.
Yes.
Hey, Keith. Yeah, I want to tell you something. Sometimes when they first started doing this with DEI or affirmative action, I was speaking to my friend Kevin, and he was talking about how does this work? He said, no, when the people, like you said, the black people apply, these are not C and D students. These are the top of their class. Mm-hmm. Whether they're white students, whether they're they're in the top of class, probably the top 2% of their class, or they're straight A students, or they're very good at what they do. They're not letting anybody in there. And I think that some white people's thinking, especially white men, is that if I'm not in there, then these other people got in there for not very good means, and that's part of probably like white male dominance. Getting to it again,
and
they
the
have to dominate, and they're not running the show. Then the show is not it's not being run well.
Right, but the erosion of quality is an issue.
Since this country's standing,
but let me say this: the erosion of quality has a real practical impact. If I am, and this is not true, but if I'm lowering the standards of a person in medical school, that means that I am graduating a person who is going to kill people because they were not properly trained. And that's the point Michelle was making. It don't really matter. If I get into a science program, science is truth. So either I can do the science or I can't do the science.
No, listen, I wasn't saying that they were letting people in and who weren't. And these people the black people who are let inside these programs, they're extremely qualified. That's what I'm getting to.
Exactly.
Donald Trump makes it sound like the black people are getting in. You probably heard it before. Who are C and D and students who barely made it by who barely have a high school diploma. But that's not the fact. The fact is that these are the top of their class. These are the people that were A students. These are the ones who, if they went to a PWI, something, and they would be able to succeed.
One of the souls that perished in the DC crash was a young lady who was on her way. She's from Wichita, Kansas. She was on her way to Howard, back to DC, because she was going to become a law professor. This young lady graduated from Harvard, right? And so when you begin to look at this idea, every time you go out, and the first thing that came to mind,
she was a civil rights attorney. Which he would be happy that she's no longer with us because he's interested in gutting everything
that's civil rights. Clarence Thomas who felt like, and look, I'm telling you, man, the outreach, and he came along in the 60s or late 60s, early 70s when they were doing outreach. He benefited from the fact that somebody was saying, hey, you know what? We need a different representation of students here. And all it takes is for people to kind of come in. I know some folks who have children who are at university school. And everybody knows university school. I'm going to say this. I know people from all our alma maters are going to go like, but if you just looked at it on paper, university school, if it's not the best school in the state, is one of the best schools because you pay for that education, right? They're paying college tuition basically at university school. But status is also important. That's one of the attachments of going to university school. And there are kids there who are there on financial assistance. So it's not so much that they could be Black, is the fact that they're on financial assistance, right? Because of status. One of the things I discovered after high school when I went to Dominican, Whitefish Bay Dominican High School, 120, was it 120 East? Silver Spring, the number of my white classmates who were on financial assistance at that school. That blew my mind. I didn't, because I assumed that everybody here came from families that were doing very well, and especially those of European descent, only to find out that wasn't the case. Right.
Well, you don't realize that until you speak to people and they said, you think, and I mean, they'll throw out the numbers and they'll say the most white people, 75% of them own homes or all the businesses in the country, but you don't realize that doesn't really mean anything to you if you're, like you mentioned, those white people there. I mean, they're not Warren Buffett. They're not, they don't,
Right.
they're not in Warren Buffett league. They're not in Bill Gates league, or they're not in some of these other billionaires, the billionaire class, Elon Musk class, or anything. They're just a lot of these, like I said, a lot of them are, like I said, it's a struggle for everybody. But I'm saying is they do have a choice. I mean, they do have more of a chance than you do because it's the skin and everything else like that. And like I said, is when they automatically will assume that person is qualified because of his skin complexion. Because somebody told me they would never go see a Black doctor because in their mind a Black doctor wasn't qualified, even though some of the Black doctors had done. I mean, when was that? Charles Drew, and they've had some other ones, and they had the other ones who did the. What was that movie that came out where the women were doing all this math and everything? Hidden
figures, yeah. Dr. Kathleen
and that's
Johnson.
The part that was never even told.
Right. She's basically the person. Or let me do this for women. Your whole GPS technology was done by a woman, Hedy Lamarr, who was an actress who never had it registered. She never got the real credit she should for developing the technology. You're right. I mean, you go in and you assume that that people are, because that's what Craig was talking about. We're programmed to think that white people's ice is cold. Let me do this, man. I gotta get up out of here. I got some guests coming in. We take a quick break.
But
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for the
input. If you can start using anything, white male dominance. I like that term.
All right, appreciate you. All right, you're listening to Community Voice. We're going to take a quick break. And we'll be right back.
The passing of a loved one is emotional enough without adding the stress of funeral arrangements. By pre-planning, you receive the desires of your heart while taking away the burden from your family. It also saves you money, providing the dignity and respect your memory deserves. And there are times when life ends unexpectedly. Please know that the New Pitts Mortuary is here to lend a helping, caring hand anytime, day or night. We are the New Pitts Mortuary.
860 AM and 106.5 FM with your host, Keith Parris.
All right, welcome back to Community Voice, and it's the first Monday of the month, and so we're joined in studio by the good folks from Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves and then what their scope of responsibilities are, and then we'll get into our conversation.
All right, great, thank you. My name is Kelly Petke, and I'm the administrator here at Children, Youth, and Family Services, which is within the Department of Health and Human Services.
And
Pull your mic down.
Good morning. I am Samantha Cortez. I am the Birth to 3 program supervisor.
And good morning. And I'm Toto Chantavisai with CYFS Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program, Children's Community Options Program, and a Birth to 3 program.
So let's start with the children and youth and family. What does that encompass in terms of services?
So at CYFS, we're responsible for all of the children's disability programs, including the Birth to 3 program, the Children's Community Options Program, and Children's Long-Term Support Program, as well as youth justice. So with youth justice, we're responsible for the conducting the intake on youth who are referred to us from law enforcement, providing the ongoing supervision, providing services and supports to the child and their family. We do have 127 bed detention center as well, located out at Villa Phillips Youth and Family Center. So we're responsible for the whole continuum of youth justice services.
Samantha?
A little bit about Birth to 3. So Birth to 3 is an early intervention special education program. We serve children from birth to 3 years old who may have a developmental delay or a diagnosed condition. And we provide services at the home. So we provide different services like speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and just help support the family in their home with that.
Is that disabilities or?
Yes, so they have to have a diagnosed condition that will result in a developmental delay, or they can be eligible for the program if they have a delay in any area of their development.
Total.
All right. So I oversee the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program, Children's Community Options Program, and Birth to 3. So even with the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program and the Children's Community Options Program, we serve kids with disabilities. It could be mental health disability, developmental disabilities, and physical disabilities. So we serve kids from birth to 18 and then usually when they turn 18, we usually try to transition them out into the adult program. And just like Samantha mentioned with the Birth to 3 program, it's an early intervention program that helps children from birth to 3. So
when you mentioned intellectual and other types of disability, what about kids who are dealing with emotional issues?
Yeah, we do have some children with mental health or emotional instability or issues. So it just depends on their diagnosis. So we do have some children with, like, for example, ADHD or other oppositional defiant disorder. And then we just have to do the children's functional screen to see if to determine if they're eligible for our program. So when we do that children's functional screening, we just look at the mental health piece to see if they need any therapy outside of the home, or we look at if they need assistance with like their activities of daily living, like bathing, dressing, those type of things when we do the children's functional screen and the instrumental daily living, talking about if they are able to socialize with other kids or any other problems. So we have a lot of kids come into our program with a lot of mental health diagnosis, and it just depends on what type of needs are assessed for our program.
And we do work very closely with the behavioral health services. BHS is in the same department as us. So the BHS does serve children and adults throughout their lifespan, and their focus is more on that mental and behavioral health. But we partner very closely with them. We have a resource referral line that individuals can call and get connected to screening, assessments, and services. So although the mental health piece is primarily within BHS, we are all one department and all serve and collaborate together on that.
There's an estimate that about 23% of MPS, Milwaukee Public Schools population and special needs. Do we have a similar statistic when we look at Milwaukee County in terms of what that percentage of the children's population would look like?
We don't have statistics, but that's something that we may also can look into, because we try to reach a lot of Milwaukee public schools also. We try to do outreach. We try to be in there with the schools. And there's a few times we also show up at the school if family needs us or to advocate for the families. But as far as the statistics that we have, we really don't have those statistics. But in the past, we've always mentioned there are over 10,000 kids, and then we're probably serving a quarter of those 10,000 kids with disabilities.
You said 10,000 kids, Milwaukee County.
Yep, just Milwaukee County.
Yeah, because I'm trying to, and maybe the number could be higher because
Probably,
it has not been
possibly.
identified or diagnosed, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, when you look at the data, it's only those kids who have been diagnosed and have been connected to a provider or system, something. There's so many kids who are not diagnosed or don't have those connections. And so when you look at total population, I don't know if we really know. But that's why we're here. We're trying to expand, get the word out about what we do have on services and options, so that those kids can get connected.
Yeah, when you were here last time, Toto, we talked about the stigma, and part of how does stigma impact on your outreach efforts to make sure that people can avail themselves to these services?
Well, when we're doing outreach, I know Samantha has done a lot of outreach, and CLTS has also done a lot of outreach. We try to connect with the families, like when they come to our table or any events that we're there. We try to connect them. We try to get to know the families, just talking to them and just try to make them comfortable when they're talking to us. And then we try to explain our programs to them. And sometimes we encounter a lot of families saying, sorry, we haven't even heard about your program. And then there's the Birth to 3 program, that early intervention. That's the critical stage of a child's life. And they haven't heard of Birth to 3 program. And by the time they're like 4 or 5 years old, they haven't had that services, because a lot of families in the community, they probably don't know how to navigate resources out there. And then when we do these outreach, we hear a lot of families like, I've never heard this program, and my child is like 15, and they probably went without services for like 14, 13 years. So we try to do a lot of outreach. And with the Birth to 3 program, we try to capture these families as early as possible.
Okay. So I think it's important to recognize we're not here, like, we want to hear from you and what you feel you need. Families, children, individuals know what they need. We're not here to tell them what they need, but help them identify what, these are resources and services and different things we can provide. But really, what do you feel you need, and how can we help you get there? But absolutely, there's absolutely a stigma out there about, the system and getting involved in any type of system. But we're here to help you and help your child. So help us be able to do that in a better way.
And on a more micro level, what happens then when, first of all, there are people who have distrust of government, and these services are offered by government. You have immigrant populations, and especially now, where there's so how do you counteract that? I've used the word fear.
Yeah, that's something that, with the current climate that we are facing right now, we have a lot of those fears and uncertainties with our program. And a lot of people hear a lot of negative stigma with the government program. Like, does it really help? But we're actually here to help. Our program offers a lot, especially with the CLTS waiver program or Children's Community Options program. I think last time when I was here, the Children's Community Options program, it's not a Medicaid program. So we try to reach more families out there that are undocumented or doesn't have Medicaid. So when we talk to families, we want to make them know that our program's here to serve you. We're not here to look into, if you're undocumented or if you're illegal or anything like that. So we just want to know about your child. We just want to learn more about your child.
I'll say too, that's not information we collect as far as legal status in the United States. We don't collect it. We're just here to help you. And that's not something we collect or report out on at all.
But you can understand that it
Definitely.
can be
Absolutely. And I think part of that too is we partner with a lot of community-based agencies and entities, and they're a huge piece of this work because they're the ones, the community partners and our staff. They're out in the community every day and trying to spread the word and say this is what we are and this is what we are not. And so that's a huge piece of it as well.
It gets back to, we talked about fear. We talked about stigma. What about some of the cultural barriers? Because there are some cultures that are very reticent about reaching out for help, especially when it comes to the government. And that has not just immigrants, they're people who are here who just say that, I don't want the government in my business.
Yeah, no, we get a lot of that. That's why there's probably more children out there that doesn't have any services with disabilities, because again, there's that fear of getting into their lives, or like some families don't want other people in their lives. But we're just here to focus on your child, especially with the Birth to 3 program. That's when I mentioned like it's the critical moment in their lives. The earlier intervention, it'll help them grow and develop as a person. And even if our program, even after the 3rd year of their life, our program is here. We're here to help. People may have that fear, like, oh, it's a government program. We can't think of it as just a government program. It's more of a community program for people. We talk about the no wrong door. When people come in, we talk about other programs or other resources that we can provide to families out there also.
I think I also want to add to that piece is your question earlier about outreach, right? It's how can we do outreach differently, and how can we build this parent engagement and community, because word of mouth is the way that people know about services. And so I think that's another way is how can we build up these parents so they can help also be advocates for the program within their own community as well.
So when you talk about, we talk about the population, what does the staff look like? Who are some of the people, or how are they providing services? I guess I'm trying to figure out a way to answer that, get a sense of what staff looks like.
Yeah, so our staff, we have a mixture. We have African Americans. We have
well, not so much the ethnic.
But
professionally, do social workers.
Oh yeah, so yeah. Like we have a mixture. Like people have different degrees. Psychology. We have more like social work, sociology. Could be criminal, not background, but criminology. Those type of things that if you have experience working with children with disabilities or mental health issues, like those are the type of people that we are looking for to help, because we need somebody with experience. Let's say if somebody with a business degree that never had any experience working with children with disabilities or any other disabilities or any other age, that's something that they wouldn't have that experience to even connect with the families or even understand our program. Because with myself, I tried to go into like the for-profit organization when I was going for my MBA, but I did it for 30 days. And after 30 days, I'm like, this isn't me. Like I'm more of a community person, not somebody that deals with other people's financial things. So we look for empathy, compassion, and background in those type of areas for people with our staff.
I think too for on the youth justice side, we have our staff who provide those direct supervision and services. We do have staff who have a 4-year degree. They might have a master's degree, but we also have staff who don't have a college degree, but they have that experience, that life experience, that experience working with young people. So we're really looking for people who have that passion, number one, because this is hard work. It's very hard work. We're asking a lot of our staff, asking a lot of our partners to show up every day for our kids and families. But also that experience. You can't teach that life experience. You can't teach, a lot of the qualities that we're looking for. So we have expanded our staff, the pool staff, to be able to get to more people.
When you're talking about one of the things, a lot of times there's usually a level of hostility towards government program, social services. Can you share what the community benefits are of these programs beyond the people who are receiving the services, but the community at large, what are some of the benefits of this?
Well, I can start with, I think one of the benefits is here at CYFS, we do offer a wide range of services and programs. It's not just children with disabilities, but it's also those individuals or children who are involved in the justice system. But we're actually expanding on that as well. For the first time, focusing on preventative. So how can we prevent violence from happening, get to children and families earlier in their lives before they even get into the justice system. So when you talk about benefit to the community, it's how can we show up differently in the community to help do some of that preventative work. Some of that crisis intervention is huge. That's a newer area for us within the last couple of years. So getting out there before the crisis has happened, and then for those who maybe already in the system are experiencing crisis, how can we show up as a government system in a different way? There is definitely stigma. Government has reputations. I totally acknowledge that, and I think it's up to us as our staff, as a system, to start showing up differently. And it's going to take time. But I think that when you talk about benefit, it's also there's opportunities or interventions that we can provide as a government system to help and help them achieve whatever their goals are, which hopefully be able to break down some of those barriers and break down some of the silos that currently exist within just systems in general.
And I talk about that in terms of let's talk about violence.
Mm-hmm.
If we're able to catch someone before it really begins to manifest itself, and that has a community benefit, right? Because certainly that negative behavior has community impact.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we do have our Credible Messenger program. That is a program we piloted back in 2020, and that is working with, number one, kids who may be in the justice system already, but also working with kids. You can refer a kid from the community who may not be in the justice system yet, but they're engaging in behaviors that could lead them to the justice system, which is a lot of that crisis, like the violent group-based violence. They may be caught in a stolen car, but not enough to charge them. So here you can refer them to Credible Messenger, or the family's really struggling with one of their kids who are engaging in these very risky behaviors. Then they can connect to Credible Messenger without having system involvement. That is separate from the courts. That is separate from the whole justice system.
I was smiling to myself because I know when I was part of the work, we had to expand what was an at-risk youth.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So when you talk about that, potentially a lot of young people are at risk, right?
And that's why I really struggle with at risk.
Right.
Because that is a label I think that the system is given.
Right.
But it's kids out there who experience a lot of trauma. From.
Well, let's do this. We're going to take a break. Let's talk, because I wanted to get to the impact of trauma and how it might exacerbate some of these situations. You're listening to Community Voice, DHS Connect. We have good folks here, Kelly, Samantha, and Toto. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're inside Community Voice on WNOV 860 AM and 106.5 FM with your host, Keith Parris.
Welcome back, and we're inside DHS Connect, Milwaukee County Department of Health and Human Services. They're here every first Monday of the month. And so we were just having this conversation primarily around youth and family services specifically. And right before we went to break, Kelly began to talk about the impact of trauma. So,
yeah, I think a lot of the kids, pretty much all the kids that we work with, have experienced different levels of trauma, and I think it's often underrated or not spoken about enough how the impact of their trauma and how that influences them throughout their whole lifespan. And it's also that generational trauma, right? So like, the kids' parents, grandparents, other family members, they're those in their community and who are, their circle, the level of trauma. There's, the macro level and then micro level trauma. And so I think it's important to recognize that, to be able to identify what that is and how that shows up in the kids' behaviors, and then be able to target that. You can't change, what has happened to a kid. You can't change necessarily the environment. But it's like, how can you work within that environment, work within their community, their household, and working with that whole family, identifying the trauma that whole family has experienced. And that I think is important to recognize. And because it's hard to move forward without, really be able to unpack all of that.
Yeah, many of us at some point have certainly in childhood, dealt with some level of trauma.
Yeah.
But now when you then combine that with a person who's dealing with probably some other areas of disability, it can really, amplify or?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it absolutely, because it's, another layer of that child, that individual has to experience, and how, depending on what the disability, what that is, and how can you may not have the skills, you don't know how to deal with that trauma. And so that's part of, definitely part of what our services and programs can help that child with as well.
What and I don't know and you can tell me if I'm coining this question wrong, but what would success look like? Is it a better word for it than, success, or?
I think from success is defined differently depending on who you talk to. Okay. So like what is success for one person may not be success for another. And we talk about this often. What does it mean to be successful? And I think that depends on what. So I'm thinking from the youth justice standpoint. If a kid comes into the system and then they're put on probation, finish their probation, get off, get court order ends, that's successful as far as like getting out of the system. But are you in a better place than where you were when you first came into the system? And so success, I think, can be measured very differently. And I think for us, we want to give, while they're involved in the justice system, give them services, resources, connections that they need while we're involved, but we don't want to be involved. We want to set you up to get you out of the system and get you connected to what you need in the community and set you up for more long-term success. So yes, it's great that you're no longer in the justice system, but what else can we help you with? Because we can't, if you're in the justice system, you're on a court order, we have a short amount of time. We can't change the fact that you're in the justice system at this point, but we can change how we work with you. And then also for the preventative side, success really could be just making that connection with a credible messenger. We also have advanced peace, making that connection with one of our fellows that helps you maybe go down a different path in life than what you're currently going down.
In terms of birth to 3.
For success, I think, again, it goes very individualized, right? What does that parent need at that time? And really working with that parent for them to feel empowered as they exit the program. Do they have the resources, the strategies that they need to be able to carry on? Because we're only there for a very short period of time, 3 years. And then really want to just make sure that they understand child development and just how, nobody really thinks that something that happens with a child between 1 to 3 is going to impact them in the future. And so just making sure that parents understand, have that education, know where to go if they need help.
And on a personal level, with the Birth to Three, my daughter was in a Birth to Three program when she first started off when she was like 2, and she said few words, and after probably like 6 months in the Birth to Three program, they kicked her out in a good way, positive, because she started picking up more words and started babbling more, and then after about a year, it's like, how do I unplug this battery from this girl to stop talking a lot? But yeah, so like it's individualized how we measure success. Like for the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program or even the Children's Community Options Program, it's just measured how because our program's more designed to have the child live independently or achieve independence as they grow or stay out of the institution. That's the main focus of our program, to stay in the community, to be with the family, and just grow and develop on their own. So it's just every case is different for how we see it.
Yeah, you hear this, children are our future. It seems really trite, but it's so true. And one of the things, the earlier the intervention, the greater the chance for success, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that's the whole purpose of Birth to Three, is to get in there. I mean, like the program says, the minute, as soon as you're born up through age 3, but then transitioning to whatever, whether it be CLTS or, school-based services or, whatever's next. But absolutely. I mean, when you think about the, all the children that we're working with, those are going, they're growing into adults, and how we can help set them up to be successful in their adult life as well. And one thing too, I want to mention is, you got to think about with kids. I mean, these are still kids. Their brain is not fully developed yet for many more years. And the power and influence of their friends and their peer group, and so that's something else we always take into account too, and make sure that we're clear that we're working with kids, and these are not adults.
It's a struggle working with adults, but you can imagine, right? Because the whole thing about adults is they have to unlearn. Where children are learning, and so hopefully you're not implanting in them things that they will have to unlearn later, right? I mean, in terms of negative behavior or those type of things. So I think it's I think the earlier that we get involved, for example, it would be, and now that we don't label as much as we used to be in the past, where your daughter who might have not have been as communicative, some people would go like,
oh yeah,
just wipe. And then find out, because a lot of times it's not our intellectual capacity, as some other things that we're dealing with. Right?
And that's the thing, if like some people may not recognize some of these delays, like some families may not even see it. But from where my experience has been in social work for all my life, those are some things that we recognize, but some families may not even know how to recognize some of these delays or speech delays or things like that. So that's why the Birth to Three is like critical. Like we try to put word out there for families to even look into their child. Even on the Milwaukee County website, there's that link for the ASQ.
Yeah, it's a developmental screening assessment tool that we have available, where families, anybody, anytime can complete that, just to see where their child is at developmentally. And we will follow up whether if they want to get an evaluation, or we can just provide some strategies. If they're ever questioning, is my child talking? Are they walking at this appropriate age? So yeah, we have that great resource available.
And sometimes it really could be where it's a delay, but at some point it will rectify itself.
Yeah.
And then, but in other instances, because they said girls are usually going to be more verbal than boys at a certain point. And so, I mean, that's kind of what we look at in terms of the research around it. But then when it's practically, when you're looking at it, a lot of times, and if that's what you've experienced, that could be your normal. And so maybe changing what is your normal based on, the science that's involved in terms of the evaluation.
Right. And that's another, when you talk about what's normal, I mean, there's a wide range. Oh, yes, exactly.
Yeah. And
right.
people have different milestones of development too, as they grow and develop. Like there's different milestones, and that's what the Birth to Three program looks at. Also, different milestones when they do their evaluation and assessments.
I think it was James Earl Jones had a traumatic experience, and he didn't speak for 3 years or something like that. It was so again talking about trauma, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And so I'm thinking about some of the, so my kids were also in birth to 3, and I literally didn't even realize that they needed this, but it took someone else to identify that. Right now, I think I'm like so I think about especially like first time parents or parents who they're just struggling to survive, right? Like there's so much else going on, and they're doing the best they can, but so you think about they may not even identify it or think, and it's also going back to that stigma. Yeah, maybe my kid could use help, but I don't want to get involved in the government or get involved in the system.
And a lot of times it's our lived experience, right?
Yeah.
Again, I use that term normal, but that seemed normal and right. And now we have more information to go like, oh no, maybe we could have done something very differently.
Yeah.
I do know as a child, I had to, I did 3 years of speech pathology. And a lot of them, thank God that they were able to diagnose whatever was my impediments were and help me work through it. But chances, let's say it wasn't caught, it's people who, for example, stutter. And maybe if it was caught early, they might have been able to deal with it. But now you're dealing with how people are making fun of you, which adds even more trauma to your life. And then who knows how you might begin to act that out. And I tell the fathers we work with in the fatherhood program, 0 to 6 in terms of child development are like the most important years.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is just amazing how that brain is developing and what they're taking in.
And how fast the brain develops during that time frame is huge. Absolutely. Excuse me.
So in terms of now you all just opened, I don't know if this is under you or with you, another Owens place.
Oh no, that's the wraparound program. BHS.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. But that is under the Department of Health and Human Services. So they did just open a location. So there's now 2 locations in Milwaukee. Again, being able to expand, trying to make those connections across Milwaukee County. And that's something where we're focused on is how we can, all those voluntary services, such as birth to 3, CLTS, all the mental behavioral health, how we can get that more community facing. So we're not asking people to come out to us where we're located, but how we can go out to you. So we're also focused on how we can attend as many different community events, right? Like every opportunity we can, we're out in the community. So if there's events happening, we love to know about them and be there so we can share resources. And even, on the youth justice side, we're not trying to get more kids in the system, but more of that preventative, connecting to the credible messengers and others, individuals. And these are individuals with lived experiences. They live in the communities our kids live in. They may have had justice involvement themselves. And so, they're able to connect with the kids and families who are on that same path. But we're getting, making sure they're out in the community and just spreading the word about all the different opportunities and hopefully be able at the same time breaking down that stigma of what government is.
How are you working with the school systems, other groups, and able to?
Yeah. So we're involved in a lot of different spaces and collaborating with the school systems. There's school systems. There's all those individuals who, may be connected to community or maybe just doing their work on their own, as well as we're connected with the different like medical systems. We're involved in what is called on the justice side, the VR FAST, which is a collective of individuals, agencies, entities trying to prevent and reduce violence in the community. And you can talk, if you want to talk a little bit about connection with birth to 3 and CLTS.
Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so for birth to 3, we are part of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So if children who continue to have concerns and they're at that 3 years old, we have to make that referral to the school system so they can begin that IEP process. So they can continue on to get those services at school. So make sure that they're ready and prepared. So when they're entered to school, they have those services that they need.
What about early childhood centers, education?
Yes.
Like daycare centers.
Yeah, we can provide services wherever that child is spending their day at. So if they're at a child care, we can go with permission with the parents to provide services and help support those child care educators. And even if they don't qualify for the school system, we can refer them to different home visiting programs, different early childhood centers, anything community based as well, just to kind of help the parents help their child socialize a little bit more.
Yeah, so again, we're across all systems around Milwaukee County. We work closely with DMCPS, with the Behavioral Health Services, MPS. So we're pretty much all over the place. And with our program, we want more children to come into our program because again, there's a lot of children and youth out there that hasn't received services, and they may have some kind of disability. So it could be, like I mentioned earlier, physical, developmental, or mental health disability. So our program, we want to reach more families out there to help them.
We also work with community-based agencies to provide the services in Birth to Three and CLTS. So we have 3 partners in Birth to Three: St. Francis, Penfield, and Curative. And so they're the ones actually providing the direct care and services to children in the Birth to Three program, as well as CLTS. So it's not always the county or government providing the direct services, but connecting with those in the community doing the work and contracting with them to provide them.
Again, if people want to take advantage of the services, their numbers, websites that they can.
Please call 414-289-6799. And also, you could also go on Milwaukee County website and also look up the Children's Disability or even Children, Youth, and Family Services. And again, that number to call or our resource line is 414-289-6799.
And if you call that line, that is, it's one access point, so that whatever you need for your child, they can help connect you to that. So it's all the children's behavioral and mental health services. It's the children's disability, and depending, we're trying to break down all the confusion, I guess I'd say, about how do you actually connect, because a lot of people are like, yeah, you may have the service, I have no idea how to even access it. So it's one phone number, one line that can help kind of navigate the system.
And you were talking about the one number. Can they call 211?
They could call 211. That is not connected.
But they would make the referral, or they would give the information.
Correct.
The number.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So 211 is always an option as well. So it's not Milwaukee County, but they can help connect to Milwaukee County.
Again, I know there is we're out in all these different community events. So there are organizations who might be having health fairs, other kind of things. Can they reach out to you?
Yes, absolutely. I would love if you're having any type resource fair, community event, whatever. I mean, there's so many things going on in Milwaukee County, and if we're not at the table, please reach out and let us know, and we will try to be there. Whether it be through, we can provide resources through the children's disability programs, through the Credible Messengers, as well as, we're all one DHHS. So, there's housing services, veteran services, aging and disability services, child support, as well as behavioral health and CYFS. So please reach out, on our website. I would direct everyone to our website, or they can call any of the DHHS numbers, and they will connect to the right people.
Kelly, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Samantha, thank you. Toto, good seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information that you have given to the community. I'm sorry, go on.
I just want to make sure, I just want to, if you have, anyone listening, if you have questions, concerns, I just really want to strongly encourage you to reach out. Even just if you don't necessarily have to get involved in the system, but we can still help connect you to different community resources, because Milwaukee is rich in resources. It's just knowing how and where to go.
It really is. And sometimes the tragedy is that people don't know that it exists, and so they can't take advantage of it. And so this is part of that effort to let you know, let the listeners know, they can let other people know that these services are out there, and the benefit of having these services.
Yes.
Wow, appreciate you all.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me do this. Debo, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Jermaine, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Michelle, thank you. Toto again, thank you. Samantha, thank you. Kelly, thank you. Let me thank everybody who's been part of the program today. Hey, the good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. We hope to talk to everybody tomorrow. And as always, go from this place in peace.
May see